We take a deeper look into the signing of Ryan Neal and tell you why it's a great move for not only Ryan Neal, but also the Buccaneers. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so please subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, so you always get the latest episodes when they drop, or you get notified when we go live, and you can join in the live chat just like you are right now. I am James Yarcho, Deputy Editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com. Co-host today and forever is David Harrison. You can find his work over at BucsGameDay.com, part of Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. And of course, follow everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82.
And thank you to all of you for making Locked On Bucs podcast first listener, first view of the day, sending you into the weekend, finally diving deeper into the big news that happened this week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, signing safety Ryan Neal, and that signing became official on Thursday. And James, I have not been able to react to the news because you so rudely did not allow me to be on the show the day that this news came out. Did not become official because, again, Thursday. And then, unfortunately, some storms and some scheduling issues kept us from doing this episode until today. But we're here and we're happy. At least I'm happy. I'm going to speak for myself. I know you and Evan talked about it a little bit already. Look, we've been talking through several mock draft Mondays, several different scenarios about Buccaneers team needs, right? And one of those critical needs has been a running mate for Antoine Winfield Jr. The fact that you have Antoine Winfield Jr. at safety and not a whole lot more. Like, you have a guy behind Antoine Winfield Jr. that has one more snap in the NFL than you and I combined, which is 0.
We're so close.
That's not a good thing. And I'm talking defensive snaps, just for the record. Now you have an option. Now you have a potential person who is going to come in there and become a running mate for Antoine Winfield Jr. And that really is where I see this fit. He looks like a versatile guy up front when you watch him. When you do go back and watch as much as you can from his time with the Seattle Seahawks, he looks like a guy who's got some range. He's got some aggression to him, and he certainly has something to prove. And we're going to get a little bit into that more with some comments that he made during the press conference. Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks is going to tell us more about him. So we don't want to give too much away because we've got a lot of information coming here later on the show. But I think immediately when you look at this, you get happy. Like, honestly, dude, even before, I don't cover the Seahawks, and I'm not a Seahawks fan, and I don't cover the NFC West. So I have no reason to really know who Ryan Neal is, right? So when the news comes across and Ryan Neal is being signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, my first reaction was the same as many Bucs fans' reactions probably was which was, who? And then I looked him up and said, oh, safety. And before I learned anything else about him, I said, fantastic, because you just needed another person in the room with Antoine Winfield Jr. And ever since he's been there, ever since this has been announced, and now that it's official, the more I learn, the more I hear, the more I see, the more I like.
Yeah, and it was funny, the news came across almost right as Evan and I were about to record WTSP Wednesday. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to really look into it. I recognized the name, but I was like, okay, they got a safety. He has, starting experience. What is this really going to do for the team? And I started looking through things after Evan and I got done recording, and you have people like Trevor Sikkema and Ben Solak and PFF and all these different people saying this might be the best signing any team could possibly have at this stage of free agency. The Buccaneers got an absolute steal. This guy is a stud. And why Seattle wanted to move on, you kind of question. But David, something that I know you like to do and I like to do is you go in and you look at the reaction of the fans, right? What are Seattle fans saying about losing this guy? And let me tell you, Seahawks fans were irate. They were furious that this guy was leaving. I saw multiple Seahawks fans going, why are we letting the best safety on the team just walk away because you signed Julian Love? It makes no sense. He's better than Love. He's better than what they have. He's the best safety on the roster. And the Buccaneers got him for pennies compared to what other people that are similar. But yeah, the more I started to learn about this signing, the more I really, really like it. He does seem like a versatile guy. And now you take a look at, a couple of the players that the Buccaneers have signed, right? Ryan Neal, Baker Mayfield. They're signing guys to prove it contracts, and they're signing guys with chips on their shoulder. And I know we're going to get to some of the things that Neal said to the media on Thursday, but this is a guy that, has been trying to prove that he's a starting caliber safety in the league for a couple of years. And once it seemed like he finally broke through that ceiling and was like, yes, I'm here, I'm a starter, the team that he started for is like, no, we're good. You can go ahead and leave now. And it's like, if that doesn't fire you up, I don't know what does. And he's incredibly familiar with a lot of the coaches on the staff. Dave Canales, there's a couple of guys on the staff that he had worked with in Seattle or in Atlanta. One of the guys on the team that he already knows is Sanat. So you take a look at all of this as a collective. Antoine Winfield Jr. now has his partner in crime. Probably we're assuming he's going to be a starter. You take a look at the ability to kind of open things up in the draft. Now you aren't desperate to fill a starting job because now you have somebody there. You look at the versatility, you look at the scheme. All around, this is a great signing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most Bucs fans are very, very happy. At a minimum, it gives you draft flexibility, and that's really what free agency is all about: is filling as many holes as you can, giving yourself as much flexibility in the NFL draft. And coming into this week, honestly, coming out of our last mock draft Monday, you're kind of looking at the Buccaneers saying you don't have a lot of flexibility. You've got some very obvious needs that you have to fill in this NFL draft. And what that does is it empowers other teams to jump ahead of you because now they know what you need. They don't think they know what you need. So NFL teams want to be as flexible as possible. And having a guy like Ryan Neal on the roster now, you don't have to take, say, Brian Branch or a nickel corner. You can do a multitude of different things because of a player with the abilities of this person. Now, shout out to everybody joining us here for the live. Of course, if you're joining us after the live or on audio, we appreciate you just as much. But Buck78 and Danny Mercado here in the live chat. Danny asks a question. So basically, what are the impact of all the signings going on with the Buccaneers and their salary cap situation, especially moving into the future? And bottom line is Jason Light and the Buccaneers front office are doing a lot of good things to get solid looking players who are on 1-year deals. They're called prove it deals for a reason. If these players prove it, okay, maybe you do some difficult math and you try to find a way to keep them. If they don't prove it, well, then you're only on a 1-year deal. There's no more dead money. You don't have to release anybody and all those things. You just move forward, kind of knowing where you need to move forward for the future. If they do so well that they price themselves out, it sucks to lose a good player all the time. But if they lose so well that they price themselves out, them pricing themselves out is going to give you more draft capital in future NFL drafts and help you continue to rebuild this thing, even though they're not in rebuild mode. I got it, but I'm going to use that word anyway. Help you rebuild this thing back into a championship caliber situation. So regardless, the Buccaneers, you find competitive players. It may not work out. Like, that's just the honest truth. It may not be that great. This may be an off-season win that doesn't turn into a regular season win. That's just a possibility. But regardless, you're going to come in, if you're the Buccaneers, into 2024 in a much better situation. Right now, projected to be $3 million over next year's salary cap, which is not good, but it's a lot better than $50, $60, $70 million over the salary cap like they were starting this season.
Yeah, I think the only contract that I know of that has void years was Levante David's. Other than that, what you're trying to do is you're getting out from under all this dead money with Tom Brady and Leonard Fournette and all these other guys that you put these void years on. You get out from under it now by signing these bridge deals. And like David said, if these guys ball out, if Ryan Neal comes out and he's a Pro Bowler, you try to lock him up for that long-term deal and you continue to move on. That's why we keep referencing this as kind of take a look at it as a 2-year retooling instead of trying to get right back in contention this year. But what does Locked On Seahawks host Corbin Smith have to say about the Ryan Neal signing? That is coming up next here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard us talk about this mobile game app, and if you've ever thought you would make a good GM, you got to give this game a try. It's not as easy as you might think to create a dynasty. Trust me, it is not as easy as you would think to create a dynasty. And when you play Ultimate Football GM, you get control and manage every strategic aspect of your team as you play through seasons and lead your team to glory. And you really find out just how hard it can be sometimes finding the right quarterback, the right coaching staff, the right pieces to become champions. Personally, I like to trade back so that if I don't have the franchise quarterback, I can make the moves, set myself up to go get that franchise quarterback. And if that means stockpiling draft capital so that I can move up and take that guy, that's exactly what I am going to do. And the best part is I can play this game anywhere. Even better, Locked On Bucs listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On, all caps, all one word, in the game store. That is Locked On, all caps, all one word. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the App Store. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today.
Thanks again for making Locked On Bucs first listener, your first view every single day. Following his arrival to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Neal said words to the media. But first, before we talk about those comments, we're going to hear comments from Locked On Seahawks host Corbin Smith, who has been covering this new Buccaneers safety for a little while now. So here's Corbin Smith.
Simply put, Buccaneers fans will love Ryan Neal. He became a fan favorite of the Pacific Northwest, not just because he was really productive on the field, but an incredible story to making the Seahawks 53-man roster. He was originally signed as a practice squad player after brief stints with the Eagles and Falcons, was released by both of those teams. The Seahawks actually released him at the end of training camp before the 2020 season, and he considered hanging up his cleats and moving on from football. But his wife at the time told him not to give up. He decided to give it one last shot, re-signed with Seattle's practice squad, and then a few weeks later, Jamal Adams suffers an injury. Neal steps into the lineup, was a practice squad elevation in that game, and intercepted Dak Prescott in the closing seconds to seal a tight victory at Lumen Field. And after that point, he played really well in 3 other starts, replacing Jamal Adams. In the last 2 years, he's had extensive playing time with Adams dealing with further injuries. This past season, Adams got hurt in the season opener, missed the rest of the year with a torn quad tendon, and all that Neal did was put together an all-pro caliber season where he stuck the stat sheet. 66 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 6 pass breakups, an interception, a sack. In the past, he's been a really good special teams player as well. He can play a number of different spots on the defensive side of the football. He can play up like an extra linebacker in nickel and dime packages. He can play as a big nickel against tight ends and big-bodied receivers. He can play free and strong safety. So this is a guy that offers great versatility, and fans are going to love his personality as well. One of the best interviews in the Seahawks locker room. He's a candid player that is going to say what's on his mind, not afraid to be honest, and has certainly said some interesting things the last couple of years. He's one of those true interviews that media members always are looking forward to, and he's going to be missed in that regard, not just what he does in the field, a guy that flies all over the place. He is a high effort, high energy player that rubs off on his teammates. And so he's going to be missed in a number of ways in Seattle. They couldn't fit his salary cap figure in with the money they had already invested in Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, and recent signee Julian Love. So he became expendable at that point, but he has been waiting in the wings for a true starting opportunity that has not been there in Seattle. There's been injuries that have allowed him to get a lot of snaps on the defensive side of the football, and he's taken full advantage of that. There's a reason that he finished 6th in all-pro balloting last year with 14 points, because he can do a number of things really well. Maybe not elite at any one aspect of his game, but he's truly one of those safeties that is a jack-of-all-trades type of talent, and that should give him a great opportunity to be the front runner to start at strong safety for the Buccaneers moving forward, maybe be a long-term option for them at that position.
All right. Shout out to Corbin of Locked On Seahawks for giving us a little bit more info on Ryan Neal. And look, this is, we just kind of talked about it in segment 1. This is a guy that's hungry. This is a guy with a chip on his shoulder. This is a guy that wants nothing more than an opportunity. And hearing Corbin talk about all the different things that, and he says he doesn't do anything at an elite level, but he does a lot of things really, really well. So how to find me a better system or a better coach to put a guy like that on the defensive side than Todd Bowles, right? Find someone who loves you the way Todd Bowles loves safeties that can do everything. That's exactly what they found. So, knowing what we know about Ryan Neal now, hearing what he had to say to the media, hearing what Seattle media and what Corbin is saying about Ryan Neal, how can you not love this signing?
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked a little bit, earlier this month on this show about how the devaluation of the safety position has kind of emerged. And so when you get a safety on the veteran minimum contract that is expected to come in and compete to be a starting safety on your team, and not only that, but he's a potential starting safety who made it onto people's all-pro ballots while playing not really a whole lot of football, relatively speaking, to guys like Jesse Bates and some of these other more well-known safeties. I mean, that's pretty impressive, and it's something to certainly be excited about. What he's excited about, the player, is the opportunity to potentially again go out there and prove that he can be a starter. In his introductory press conference with Bucs Media, he was asked if the appeal, if competing for a starting job was part of the appeal of his wanting to come to Tampa Bay, and he responded, quote, "That was definitely appealing. My goal was just to show the league that I'm a legit starter. I've been in Seattle the past couple years and had my chances to go and flash and show people. Last year was really big, and this year I just want to make that set in stone. Set the statement, I'm a starting safety. I want to come here and add value to the defense. I never want to take away from a room. You always want to add to it. I can't wait to meet my teammates, the rest of my coaches. Anywhere I can add value, that's my whole goal this year," end quote.
Yeah, and you want those guys, right? You want those guys that are going to compete. They know, he knows that he's not being handed a starting job. We are assuming he will end up being the starter, but that may not be the case. If the Buccaneers end up taking Brian Branch at 19, there is now a competition for the other starting safety job. If the Bucs draft Sidney Brown, there could still be a competition for the starting job. So he's not being handed anything, but he's finally getting an opportunity that he feels. And honestly, I kind of feel that he's proved on the field that he deserves a starting job. He has started what I think it was like 30 games in the last 2 years or 16 games. I can't remember the numbers now. There was a huge number dump right before we started recording. But, he has put up the kind of numbers that you want out of a starting safety. So to get an opportunity now to be that starter, to be the Robin to Antoine's Batman, however you want to put it, that's what he's here for. And he wants to earn that job. That's that chip on the shoulder that I was talking about. He feels he's been slighted in the past. He feels he is able to do this job. So he's going to go out there and he's going to bust his butt. And even if he doesn't get it, he now knows from his experience in Seattle, you never know when your number is going to get called on. So he's going to prepare even harder to make sure that he can, is he going to get back on the field as a starter? Is he going to take back that job? Or is he going to have to fill in like he has in the past? And now it's the battle to, okay, I'm a free agent next year. I have to continue to prove that I can be a starter, so I'm going to ball out.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it reminds me a lot of the signing of Shaquille Barrett when he came over from the Denver Broncos. And similar to that, Broncos fans were very upset to see Shaq leave. And then as the Broncos lost Von Miller and traded Bradley Chubb, they were really upset that Shaq Barrett was no longer with the team. And that went pretty well. Doesn't guarantee that this signing is going to do the same thing, but there is kind of a history there. And again, when the fan base is sad to see a player leave, that's a good sign for the team's fan base who's getting the player. And when media members are sad to see a player leave, that too is something worth because, media members, you get to see a little bit more behind the scenes of kind of how they interact with teammates. So certainly the fact that Seahawks media is going to miss him and Seahawks fans are already missing him bodes well for the Buccaneers, Bucs fans, and Bucs media.
Yep. And now the biggest question the Buccaneers fans are going to have is, how does this signing affect the Buccaneers draft needs? We are going to reorder the biggest positions of need coming up next here on Locked On Bucs. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and three-pointers drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same game parlays. So don't miss out on the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Wrapping things up here on a live edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. And David, instead of reordering the draft needs, you want to do a frame-by-frame breakdown of the Ahsoka teaser that was released today?
I know what Ahsoka is.
That's hurtful. All right, we'll talk about the draft. So how does the signing of Ryan Neal affect the Buccaneers draft needs? Obviously, safety was a huge need. We've been harping on it for weeks about how bad the Buccaneers needed not just one, but multiple safeties. But the Bucs will have their likely starter in the form of Ryan Neal now. So what are the biggest needs in order of importance for the Bucs come the NFL draft? I'm going to kick things off. The number one need on this team is still offensive tackle. You could have made the argument that tackle was above safety. You at least had a body that you could have put on the right side if you moved Tristan Wirfs to the left at the offensive tackle position. You had nothing. And said you had Antoine and nothing. So safety was kind of that number one. Now you have Ryan Neal there. Tackle becomes the most important part. We don't know if Luke Goedeke is going to go back to the right tackle position. We don't know if they want to leave Tristan over there or move him to the left side. Goedeke struggled a lot. Maybe going back to right tackle will help. We're not really sure. Maybe he's just not equipped for the NFL game and he's just going to kind of be a career backup. But you have to address the tackle position, whether that's the left tackle, the right tackle, however they want to do it. One has to be brought in. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. It has to be somebody in the first 3 rounds without a shadow of a doubt that can come in and at least possibly compete to start. Because if not, it could be a mess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the trenches are extremely important. And right now the Buccaneers don't have a starting 5 that you can really piece together and feel confident in. So they've got to address the offensive line first and foremost. Next, you got to stay in the trenches, but you got to flip the side of the ball. And you got to go to the defensive line. Vita Vea is great. You got some where you got a new face in the locker room, and that's great. And veteran presence. You've got Logan Hall that hopefully is going to take a step forward. But again, you need to draft based on what you know and not what you think. And even though if you think Logan Hall is going to take another step, you hope Logan Hall is going to take another step. Until he does, you have to address that position. You have to address that line. Maybe not necessarily go in the first round, right? But you have to at least come here in the second round, third round, and you have to strongly consider getting someone to run next to Vita Vea because, again, you can't have Vita Vea repeat as your team's leading sack getter. The reason he led as a sack getter says he's the only one getting any penetration. the way that you get penetration for other guys like Joe Tryon, Shoyinka, Shaquille Barrett, and whoever that new edge player is going to be is by adding more people, making the blockers spread out a little bit more and have to focus on other players. You have to address the defensive line. Even if you want to get deeper in the draft, you need a second guy behind Vita Vea that can come in and give him a breather when he needs it, or knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but if he gets injured.
Yeah, I think the trenches on both sides of the ball have now fully taken over the number 1 and number 2 spot. You can flip-flop them if you want to, but I do agree that these two are the two most important. You may disagree with my next one, but I'm going with running back at number 3. Yes, we are all excited about what Rachaad White can do. We're all excited about Rachaad White RB1. But after that, you have Keyshawn Vaughn. Still, at this point, I think he's proven that he's just unproven. You know, you know what you're going to get out of Keyshawn Vaughn, and it's not going to be very much. They bring in Chase Edmonds, which is great, but okay. You know, he can come in, he can spell Rachaad a little bit. You know, he can run, he can catch, but is he really going to be an impact player? No. You're talking about the league's worst rushing attack in 2022. Part of that can be placed on the offensive line being a constant revolving door of third stringers and practice squatters that were having to go in and out because of injury. But a lot of it was lack of production due to lack of talent. So outside of Rachaad White, they really don't have anyone that when you see them go in the game, you're like, all right, sweet. You know, this is going to work. The Bucs have to address the running back position. Rachaad White needs help, whether that means that, you know, it'll be a Rachaad and a rookie doing basically a 50-50 split. And then you got Chase and Keyshawn there as emergency backs, whatever. It's a position that they desperately need help, especially if Canales wants to run the ball as much as he has implied he wants to run the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the days of having a running back and just being good with one guy they're gone. You know what I mean? Outside of very few examples, like Derrick Henry, obviously is, you know, that's going to be the counterpoint. But outside of Derrick Henry, really not a lot of people out there, not a lot of players, not a lot of teams out there relying on just one dude to lead the running back group. So again, if you're drafting based off of what you have Rachaad White, who is solid, still has room to grow, hopefully, right? But by himself is not, you know, a full running game type of guy. Then you have to address the position. The next need, number 4 here on this list, is going to be corner. The addition to the safety here, you know, you heard Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks talk about he can be your big nickel. He can be your strong safety. He's got a lot of versatility, and that's great. But if you drop him down into the box as a big nickel, now you need another safety. So I'll even caveat to say cornerback / DB, right? You got to address the secondary. It's not enough to just get a guy who can compete for a starting safety job, because right now he's not competing with anybody. He is the starting strong safety. Like that's just the bottom line. So get somebody who can compete with him, or if you're not going to get someone who can compete with him, leave him in his organic position, bring in a big nickel via the NFL draft. So cornerback / safety / DB, just get another cover guy in the back end of your defense so that you can actually start using some versatility and moving these guys around as chess pieces.
Yeah, I mean, much like Logan Hall, you take a look at Zion McCollum, you hope he takes a big step. You hope that he is improved, but you know, if not, you still need somebody there. You have Jamel, you have Carlton, that's great, but you need somebody else that can step in and be able to fill that spot. My next one was actually safety, so we're pretty much on the same page there. Yeah, it's great that Ryan Neal's in Tampa now, but it's Antoine and Ryan Neal, and then there's nothing. So you still have to draft a safety. This signing does not preclude the Buccaneers from taking Brian Branch, from taking Sidney Brown in the second, from taking, you know, a safety with one of their first 3 picks. It really, really doesn't. This is a guy who is trying to prove that he's a starter in the NFL. He thinks he is. I think he is. I think David thinks he is. But it's a 1-year deal. So if he blows up and prices himself out, well, now you don't have him anyway, and you're kind of stuck in the same position again. But they need depth now. If you pencil Ryan Neal in as the starter, you have nobody behind them. It is still a position of need. It's just not a position of such severe need anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the final need that we're going to list here today, obviously there's many more position groups, but linebacker. You have Levante David back, and that's fantastic. Devin White, we'll see what he does as far as his continued development. Regardless, you need at least one off-ball linebacker to step in the very, very near future. And you want to get that guy a year early, not a year late. You need to go find a potential replacement for Levante David at a minimum this NFL draft. A couple of things out of the live chat. Danny, I got your Lamar Jackson question written down. I will answer that on our next episode, which will be on YouTube Sunday night, audio, and obviously still on YouTube Monday morning. So I will answer that question for you on our next episode. Thank you for the question. Make sure you come back and get that answer. Richard, we are doing draft giveaway, possibly giveaways. We do not know what they are as of right now. But if you're sending in your mock drafts for our mock draft episodes and your mock draft appears on the air, we are writing down your name, your email address, your Twitter handle, and we are writing down your first pick, because I do anticipate that there will be some sort of giveaway tied to that first pick. So yes, there is some significance in getting that pick correct. But again, can't tell you what exactly it's going to be for legal reasons. Can't really tell you, but we probably will not be doing a direct jersey giveaway. I feel a gift card situation coming on. Our last year's NFL draft giveaway winner was incredibly gracious. We had a lot of problems with getting that done. And I think because of those issues, we will not be going that route again, but we will make sure it's worth your time. I promise you that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And hey, gift cards are always the perfect size. Always. With that, we are going to get out of here. We appreciate each and every one of you that were in the live show, in the live chat. We love all of you. Please continue to do so. We are here for you guys and love the interaction, but we definitely want to thank you guys for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view of the day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes. From free agency to the draft, salary cap management, and more. Join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. We will be back for a mock draft Monday and apparently a YouTube live chat question and answer segment, a little bit delayed because David already said he's got your back. So there will be something there about what Danny is curious about. But if you have a mock draft submission or draft questions or anything of the sort, of course, you can send those to lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com or DM us on Twitter @LockedOnBucs. Check out everything that David is doing over on BucsGameDay.com. Check out everything that I'm doing over at BucsNation.com. And of course, follow everything on Twitter @LockedOnBucs, @JYarcho_Bucs, and @DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.